One of the areas where Donald Trump has really bamboozled a lot of people when it comes to his knowledge of an issue is trade and economic policy. This was something that, if you go back to the 2015 and 2016 Republican presidential campaign, Donald Trump very early on started talking about China, or China, as he likes to refer to it, endlessly talking about how the US is losing, the trade deals are bad. He understands it. He's going to fix it. He's going to do the negotiations like a businessman and all of this stuff. And because a lot of other people he was talking to also don't understand those issues, he made a lot of headway on the idea that he gets it and he's going to fix it. And even if his supporters didn't fully understand exactly what he was going to do or how it was going to be good for them, they fell for it. They were bamboozled. And then when Donald Trump became the president of the United States, he tricked his supporters into thinking that the things he was doing were good, right? The trade policy, the trade war with China, the tax policy, which a lot of the benefit was from changing the withholdings tables, and people thought they were having more money than they filed their taxes, and they actually paid more in tax for the year in total. And all of it seemed to make sense to them. Oh, yeah, Trump's doing great. It's all good for us. But the truth is that that was not at all the case. And I want to take some time today to look at the news of Donald Trump bragging about and his supporters bragging about signing the US China phase one trade deal. What the hell does phase one mean? What are they talking about? What is this all about? So, the day before yesterday, Donald Trump and China's Vice Premier Liu He signed the US China phase one trade deal. In terms of tariffs, this means very little, but we'll talk about what it does do and what it doesn't do. Most importantly, what it does not do. Signing this phase one trade deal does not end the trade war. Donald Trump has not lowered tariffs on Chinese goods. Top line, that's the most important thing to understand. Everything else is more or less secondary to that. Really, this was a photo op for Donald Trump. Here is a little video, Trump making a huge deal out of all of this. We're showing video of the signing ceremony that the Trump White House dreamed up. You know how they like to do it with a whole bunch of people. Donald Trump signing a bunch of copies, taking forever to just write his name. It's all very weird. But the important thing is, what does the deal do? One of the things that's in this phase one deal is that it commits China to cracking down on the theft of American technology and corporate secrets. It's not nothing, okay? But in the context of the failed trade war that Donald Trump is waging, it's pretty underwhelming. The deal includes a $200 billion spending package by China to close a little bit of the trade imbalance with the United States. Now, I want to get back to that because we have that trade imbalance for a reason. Donald Trump objectively cites it as a deficit. By deficit, I mean he cites it as a negative thing. But our economy is actually based on that, and we'll talk about that later. Phase one deal that was signed commits China to avoiding currency manipulation to gain an advantage. And it has a system for enforcing that. Of course, then you've got to debate whether the currency was manipulated to gain an advantage or not. And then you're in 5 years of arguing about that. The really important thing is what's missing from this deal. This deal does nothing to address Chinese hacking of American companies. That's something that supposedly they were going to be talking about and dealing with. It does nothing about that. The deal does nothing about the subsidies from the Chinese state that have fueled Chinese companies around the world, arguably to the detriment of American companies. Now, I'm not taking a position here on that. That's a debate in and of itself about what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, protectionism, economic nationalism, etc. But they said this was one of the things they wanted to deal with, and they are not dealing with it in phase one of this deal. It also does not end the trade war. It does not remove the disastrous tariffs. Now, of course, the Trump administration says all of that is going to come in phase two. So really the headline here is something has been passed. Donald Trump can claim it as a win. People who don't know much will believe that it's a win. And maybe when you go interview Trump supporters at rallies and say, what has Trump accomplished that you like? They'll say, well, he did the phase one trade deal, even if in reality it doesn't do very much. Now, to be charitable, if I wanted to be as charitable as possible about this phase one deal, I could say signing something, anything, as long as it has even a tiny step forward, it could generate momentum for doing something bigger. Okay, I mean, that's the most charitable analysis, and time will tell whether it's a good analysis. Whether it actually leads to anything further. But again, it's just an opportunity for Trump to brag, and here he is doing it.
The agreement tears down major market barriers for U.S. food and agricultural exports. China will now welcome American beef and pork, poultry, seafood, rice, dairy, infant formula, animal feed, biotechnology, and much, much more.
So you get the idea. Now, let me talk a little bit about the trade imbalance. This is really important to understand, and I've mentioned it in passing before. Donald Trump constantly talks about the trade deficit. We're importing way more from China than we are exporting to China. And we've got to fix this. You don't just fix that, because our economy for decades has been based on that. Decades ago, when outsourcing of labor started to go elsewhere, when outsourcing of manufacturing started to go elsewhere, and we increasingly became a service-based economy, when you do that, you are essentially deciding we are going to prioritize cheap stuff from overseas to fuel our economy rather than higher wages and more expensive stuff that's produced locally. So a different example, this is not a perfect example, but a lot of people, when they go to Switzerland or they hear about Switzerland, they go and they have sticker shock. A cheeseburger is 28 Swiss francs. I remember it like it was yesterday when I was in Zurich a couple years ago. I said, this must be the best cheeseburger around. No, it was just a normal cheeseburger. It's extremely expensive for everything, but you have people who are working what in the US would not be well-paid jobs, earning a living wage. And it's a different type of economy. And things cost more, but there's a higher standard of living. You have taxes used to fund a number of social services. Okay, that's one way a country's economy can go. In the United States, the decision was made, and it doesn't have to be an explicit decision where everybody says, we don't care about wages, we want to keep prices down for people, and we're going to do it with cheap stuff from China. That is what the economy is based on. So the idea that Donald Trump is going to just fix the trade imbalance without realizing that he has to completely restructure the economy and undo decades of the economy being organized in this way, to call it naive would be a huge understatement. Remember that whenever we talk about the trade deficit with China. More smoke and mirrors, more lack of any real understanding of economics or trade, but it's all politics. It's something that Trump supporters, if they remember it, can say Trump accomplished in order to justify voting for him instead of whoever is the Democratic nominee in November, which is ultimately what they want to do. I know that the David Pakman Show audience is full of curious and creative people who love learning new things and bettering themselves. And that's why I'm so excited to tell you about one of our sponsors, Skillshare, the vibrant online learning community that offers thousands of classes on almost any topic you can imagine. And you'll get full access to the entire library of classes for 2 entire months free when you go to davidpakman.com/skill. All of the classes are taught by experts in their fields. They've got classes on drawing, painting, photography, video editing, web design, bookkeeping, marketing, personal productivity. Doesn't even scratch the surface. I recently took a class about photography. If anybody follows me on Instagram, you know that my photography skills leave much to be desired. And it was great. I got so much out of it. And hopefully you will see the fruits of me taking that class reflected in my Instagram pictures sooner than later. They have classes for every skill level, whether you're wanting to get better at something you already have experience with, you want to learn something totally new to you. You set your own pace. Classes are usually less than an hour long. They're divided up into bite-sized segments so you can easily fit them into your schedule. Make 2020 a year where you explore new skills, deepen existing passions, get lost in creativity. Skillshare really makes it easier than ever. Skillshare memberships are less than $10 a month, and that gives you access to the thousands of classes they offer. But everybody in the David Pakman Show audience gets a Skillshare membership totally free for 2 whole months. Just go to davidpakman.com/skill. That's davidpakman.com/SKILL.